Welcome everyone to today's webinar on the NIGMS Biomedical Undergraduate Research Training, or BURT T34 program. My name is Lamise Axem, and I'm a program officer in the Division of Training and Workforce Development at the National Institute of General Medical Sciences. Today I'm joined with my colleagues from program, Dr. Moshoumi Paul, Lori Stepanek, and Mohammed Ayegbo. We are also joined from our grants management colleague, Adam Barnhart. Today, we are excited to guide you through the key components of this funding opportunity designed to strengthen undergraduate biomedical research training. Next slide, please. So a few quick notes before we get into the content. These slides are available on the BURT website, so you can have access to reference these slides. And at the end of the session, there will be a question and answer session. Next slide, please. Before we proceed, a quick disclaimer: this webinar and these slides are for informational purposes only. This presentation serves as an overview and is not meant to be comprehensive in covering every required component of an application. For any submission, you must follow the detailed instructions provided in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, the SF424 Application Guide, and any related notices. Next slide, please. So we've organized today's webinar into 6 main sections to give you a better understanding of the BURT program. We will start with an overview of the program, its goals, and what it aims to achieve, then discuss eligibility and key dates, program considerations, highlight the critical components you will need to prepare, and peer review so you understand how applications are evaluated and what reviewers will be looking for before closing with tips and resources. And at the end of the session, we will finish with a Q&A. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we'll talk about the BURT program. Next slide. So the overarching goal of the BURT program is to strengthen undergraduate research training environments and prepare students to complete their baccalaureate degrees and transition successfully into biomedical research-focused graduate programs such as a PhD or MD PhD. Next slide, please. So the BURT program has 2 tracks, a single site track and a community college partnership track. The single site track is designed to support trainees from a single baccalaureate degree granting institution or granting organization, and the community college partnership track is designed to support community college trainee development between at least one associate degree granting organization and at least one baccalaureate degree granting organization. It's important to note that NIGMS will accept only one application and support only one award per applicant organization. Next slide, please. So NIGMS funded training programs are expected to provide a rigorous, well-designed research training program that includes mentored research experiences, courses, seminars, and additional training opportunities to equip trainees with skills required for careers in the biomedical research workforce, including technical, operational, and professional skills. Technical skills include things like training in methods, technologies, and quantitative and computational training. Operational skills include training in experimental design, interpretation of data, and conducting research in the safest manner possible. And professional skills include things like management skills, leadership, communication, and teamwork. Next slide, please. So now I'll hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Moshoumi Paul.
So we will now move into eligibility requirements and key submission dates for the BURT program. Next slide, please. So this section outlines who is eligible to apply and highlights important deadlines. Applicants should review the NOFO carefully to confirm eligibility before preparing an application. To be eligible for the BURT program, applicant organizations must enroll undergraduate students and must have received an average of less than $50 million per year in NIH research project grant funding over the previous 3 fiscal years. This funding threshold applies to the applicant organization. For the community college partnership track, a community college may partner with an institution that exceeds the $50 million research project grant threshold. provided that the community college is the applicant organization. Principal investigators must have a full-time appointment. For community college partnerships, there must be at least one PI from each partner organization. Multiple PIs are encouraged, with at least one established biomedical investigator among them. Applicant organizations will establish qualifications. Applicant organizations. Yes, that's correct. Applicant organizations will establish qualifications for selecting trainees consistent with applicable laws and will carry out the selection process. Trainees must be U.S. citizens, permanent residents, or non-citizen nationals and be pursuing full-time research training. Applicants should confirm that all eligibility requirements described in the NOFO are met prior to submission. Applications that do not meet eligibility criteria will not be reviewed. Next slide, please. For the 2026 cycle, the first application due date is February 25th. Subsequent cycles follow standard NIH due dates. Late applications will not be accepted. Applicants are strongly encouraged to submit early to allow time to correct any system errors or warnings prior to the deadline. Applications that are incomplete or do not follow instructions may be withdrawn and will not be reviewed. Next slide, please. We will now turn to key program considerations. The expectations in this section reflect the core goals of the BURT program and will be central to the evaluation of these applications. Next slide, please. BURT programs are expected to prepare students for careers as biomedical researchers. Programs must provide strong foundations in scientific reasoning, experimental design, data analysis, and the safe and responsible conduct of research. Trainees should engage in substantive, mentored research experiences that allow them to contribute meaningfully to research projects and develop the skills needed for graduate-level training. Programs should also include structured opportunities for trainees to communicate their research work in collaborative settings and prepare for transition into research-focused higher degree programs such as PhD or MD-PhD programs. Programs should also present a clear and integrated strategy for supporting undergraduate degree completion and successful transition into advanced biomedical research training. Next slide, please. NIGMS encourages applications from a wide range of eligible organizations, including institutions in IDEA-eligible states, historically Black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and institutions that enroll significant proportions of Pell Grant-eligible students. Consistent with NIGMS practices and applicable law, funded programs may not use race, ethnicity, or sex as eligibility or selection criteria for trainees or faculty candidates. NIGMS does not use the race, ethnicity, or sex of trainee candidates, trainees, or faculty in the review process or funding decisions. Applicants must ensure that recruitment and selection practices comply with these requirements. Next slide, please. All trainees must complete at least one summer research experience lasting a minimum of 8 weeks. The SRE should broaden and deepen the trainees' research experience and may expose trainees to new research environments, scientific approaches, or institutional contexts. For the single site track, trainees are strongly encouraged to complete the SRE at an institution different from the awardee. For the community college partnership track, trainees are expected to complete the SRE at the baccalaureate degree granting partner. Applicants should review section 6.2 of the NOFO for full details regarding SRE requirements and allowable costs. Next slide, please. Programs must provide research training opportunities across the breadth of biomedical disciplines available at the institution. Applications that focus narrowly on a single discipline or research approach, particularly when multiple biomedical departments are present, will be considered a low priority for funding. Exposure to a range of biomedical research areas helps trainees build broad scientific knowledge and prepare for diverse research careers. For community college partnership programs, breadth should reflect the combined strengths of the participating institutions. Next slide, please. BURT trainees are typically supported full-time during the final 2 to 3 years of their undergraduate studies. Training grant funds are not intended to support short-term research experiences, such as one-year appointments. Trainees are expected to engage in research training on a full-time basis, generally defined as approximately 40 hours per week, consistent with institutional policy. Appointments are normally made in 12-month increments and should not be less than 9 months unless otherwise approved. For community college partnership programs, trainees should begin appointments at the associate degree granting institution with clear plans for timely transfer to the baccalaureate degree granting partner. Programs are expected to appoint a new cohort each year during the 5-year project period, unless a strong justification is provided to explain any planned or expected deviations. And at this time, I will hand it over to my colleague, Lori Stepanek.
Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the application components. Note that there's not time for us to cover everything. Again, you must follow the detailed instructions provided in the NOFO, the SF424 application guide, and any related notices. Next slide, please. For the title of the application, please use the format BURT at and the name of your organization or organizations. You can name your program something different, but this standard title helps us administratively. Next slide, please. In the agency routing identifier field, you must enter the code for the single site, 1SS, or the community college partnership track, 2CCP. Next slide, please. Application instructions are found in 3 places: in the NOFO, the SF424 application guide, and in related notices. You should use the version of the SF424 with training instructions, currently Forms I. This provides the generic instructions for a training grant. The NOFO in Section 4 provides additional instructions specific to BURT. Occasionally, there are changes or reminders for the application process that are published as notices of NIH policy changes. So, for example, there have recently been changes to the BioSketch format. There is a related notices section of the NOFO, so that's at the bottom of the slide, that used to list the notices specifically relevant to the NOFO. Currently, it instead just links to a list of all notices, and you need to skim through this page to see if there's anything that's relevant. If you aren't sure if a notice is relevant, please email us and we can let you know. The NOFO instructions always supersede the general application guide instructions, and the NIH guide notice information supersedes both the NOFO and the application guide. Next slide, please. There is a link to the table of page limits in the NOFO. Remember to use the T or institutional training table. For your convenience, we've listed some of the page limits here. If a section exceeds the page limits, the application will be withdrawn prior to review. Please note the biosketches for PIs, key personnel, and faculty mentors should now use the common forms created through Science UV. We will provide more information on that in a later slide. Next slide, please. So this is a screenshot of the PHS 398 Research Training Program Plan form with the most relevant parts highlighted. All BURT applications must include the training program plan, a plan for instruction in the responsible conduct of research, a plan for instruction in methods for enhancing reproducibility. If there are multiple PDs or PIs, then a multi-PD PI leadership plan must be included. There also must be the biosketches from proposed faculty mentors, the required organizational letter, and the required data table. Generally, BURT applications will not need to include anything in the other training program section. For example, vertebrate animals and select agents would be covered by the faculty mentors grants. So you would only include something here if, for example, you were having a course for the students that they all participated in that used vertebrate animals. Note that appendix materials are not required, which is different than some previous NIGMS training grants. The only allowable appendix materials are related to program evaluation, and you can find a list of the allowable appendix materials in the SF424. So I'll now talk about each of these sections in a little more detail. Next slide, please. So note the numbers in the title in the next few slides correspond to the number on the PHS 398 form. That is what the number 2 indicates here. Excuse me. The research training program plan is the most important and longest part of the application. Note that for this section in particular, the NOFO contains additional instructions for what should be included in this section. In general, we and the reviewers will be looking for a description of how the program will further the goals of BURT to strengthen research training environments and develop a pool of well-trained students who complete their baccalaureate degrees and transition into and complete biomedical research-focused higher degree programs. This section should also describe how the program is tailored to the organizational context and will enhance the development of safe and supportive research training environments that promote the success of all individuals beyond just providing a stipend for students while they're in college. Applications proposing community college partnerships should provide a sound rationale for selection of partnering institutions and include a clear description of how the proposed partnership will enhance the research training environments at all of the organizations involved and facilitate an efficient and timely transfer for community college trainees. Next slide, please. So these are the sections of the research training program plan. Please include these as headers so that reviewers can easily find the requested content. So I'm not going to go through each section, but note there are additional instructions in the NOFO for each section. Next slide, please. So we've gotten a lot of questions on the training outcomes section and how this should be addressed both for organizations with previous NIGMS training grants versus organizations that are new to NIGMS training grants. So if you previously had a program similar to what you were proposing for BURT, you can describe that program and its outcomes. If you did not, you should describe outcomes of students who would have been eligible for the proposed program. For example, students in the majors that you will draw from and who otherwise would meet your application and selection criteria. Note again that for NRSA training grants, trainees must be U.S. citizens or non-citizens nationals, so you can take that into account when you think of who would be eligible for the program. Baseline data should include metrics related to NOFO goals, such as degree completion rates, time to degree, and rate and time frame of graduates transitioning into and completing research-focused higher degree programs. You may also include recent graduates' participation in authentic research experiences and scholarly activity like conference attendance and authorship. For community college partnership track programs, applicants should provide information on the outcomes of students involved in previous partnerships between the applicant and partner organizations. If there are not previous partnerships, describe the outcomes for each member, focusing on students who transfer to the partner or transfer to from other community colleges. For example, transfer rates, particularly in relevant STEM fields, would be important baseline information. Next slide, please. The plans for instruction in the responsible conduct of research and in methods for enhancing reproducibility are required components of the application. For these, all of the instructions are found in the SF424. We've listed here some additional resources to help you get started, such as the Clearinghouse, which contains free training modules on rigor and reproducibility. Some of them were developed or funded by the NIH, and some are external, so you might want to incorporate those into your training plan or use them for inspiration. Next slide, please. As mentioned, multiple PIs, one from each partner in organization, are required for the community college partnership track. For single site tracks, MPIs are encouraged but not required. So if you do designate multiple PIs, your application must include a multi-PD PI leadership plan. So in this plan, you'll provide justification for your plan, describe each PI's roles and responsibility, and highlight each PI's expertise. You should also explain how decisions will be made and conflicts resolved, and how a successor will be chosen if one of the PIs has to step down. Next slide. Now we'll move on to the faculty, trainees, and training record section. Next slide, please. So all faculty that you propose as mentors in the program need to submit a biosketch. Research areas of the participating faculty must fall within the NIH mission. Programs are encouraged to recruit prospective mentors from various career stages and from the breadth of biomedical disciplines at the applicant organization. Participating faculty should provide a personal statement that describes the appropriateness of their research background for the proposed training program, their approach to teaching scientific rigor to undergraduate trainees, and their commitment to mentoring undergraduate students. Use of the common forms for the biosketch prepared through Science CV is now required. Use of the incorrect format may cause the application to be withdrawn without review. All of the faculty biosketches should be submitted together as a single PDF. Next slide, please. So the organizational eligibility and support letter is a required component. This should be written by a president, provost, dean, or similar key leader. The letter must certify that the organization enrolls undergraduates, that this organization or a partner grants baccalaureate degrees, and that it has received NIH RPG funding averaging less than $50 million over the last 3 years. The letter also must describe organizational commitment to the proposed training program, such as support for undergraduate research training, support for personnel involved with the program, and support for program evaluation. There is a 10-page limit for the organizational letter. Additional letters are permitted, for example, in community college partnerships, the partner programs, or organizations that may support summer research experiences. And all of the letters of support should be combined into one PDF. And then this table lists all of the NIH training data tables that are required for the application. Please allow yourself plenty of time to collect all of the required information. The tables have been updated in the last couple of years, so hopefully the instructions are more clear. But we've also listed some resources at the bottom of the slide. There are facts. There are slides prepared by TWD. The NIH training table associated slides link goes to those that have additional guidance. And then data from the training table should also be summarized in the appropriate sections of the research training program plan. Next slide, please. In addition to the NOFO, information about BURT can be found on the BURT webpage and in the NIGMS training program facts. Note there's a section for general pre-award information that may be helpful, a specific section for BURT, and a section on the NIH training data tables. As we said, the NIH occasionally releases notices to provide policy or application instruction updates that supersede what's in the NOFO. These are all listed on the Notices of Policy Changes website. There may also be NIGMS specific notices like the ones announcing this webinar that can be found in the NIH guide, which you can filter by IC and keyword. You can also subscribe to the NIH guide and to grants.gov if you want updates delivered to your inbox, and you can apply filters to those subscriptions too. It's always a good idea to check in with a program officer before you get too far down the road of writing your application. We can be reached at the BURT mailbox. So now I'm going to turn it over to Adam Barnhart to talk about the budget.
Great, thank you very much, Lori. Next slide, please. All right, so on this slide, we're going to discuss the stipends, the tuition, and fees. This is going to make up the bulk of your application costs. So first, the stipends, like with many NIGMS and NIH institutional training awards, we're going to provide stipends for a subsistence allowance to the trainees so they can defray some of their living expenses. The stipends are going to be awarded at the level that is in effect at the time the award is made. And they're updated usually on an annual basis, sometimes in April or May, every year through a guide notice. If your award is made prior to the update for the current fiscal year, your award will be updated to reflect the current stipend level that's in effect for the year. For tuition and fees, I encourage everybody to always request the actual level of tuition that is in effect at the institution. If you're doing a community college track and you have 2 or more institutions, request the level of institution that is on a per institutional basis. So for the trainees that are training at the community college, request their community college level of tuition. For trainees that are training at the 4-year institution, request the 4-year institution level of tuition. The overall award level of tuition is usually up to 60% of the requested tuition, up to a maximum of $16,000 per year. So again, that's why it's very important to request your actual levels. Do not pre-reduce your tuition request down to 60%. Otherwise, it may get reduced again when we go to calculate the award. Next slide, please. Trainee travel, the basic travel cost is very simple. It's just up to $1,000 for continental US, up to $1,250 outside the continental US per trainee. And this is for travel to general scientific meetings and workshops. Important note that trainees must be appointed on the BURT grant at the time of the travel for this to be an allowable cost. Next slide, please. The summer research experience, so these costs are requested as part of the travel costs. And NIGMS will fund SRE for up to half of the awarded number of trainees at the time the award is made. If you request an odd number of trainees, like 5 or 7, you can round up. The funds are provided as follows: $4,000 for basic expenses and then $750 for their travel for the summer. So it's $4,750 for half of the trainee slots per year, plus the $1,000 per all trainee slots for a year, and that should be what the travel request is for. Next slide, please. And finally, the training-related expenses. These costs cover a wide variety of costs that are listed here: PD salary, staff salaries, program coordinators, things like that. NIGMS for this program will provide a TRE at a rate of $12,500 per trainee per year. So when you request your budget, please just multiply the number of positions that you're requesting by 12,500, and that's the TRE that you're going to get per year. Anything that's in your TRE fund should be broken down and justified in the budget justification, which is on the next slide. In the budget justification, state the number of requested trainee slots per year. If you're doing the community college track, please have have a budget justification for each site and have a separate budget for each site. Okay, so for the parent site in year 1, if you're doing the community college track, you may be requesting nothing because all of the trainees may be at the partner site, the community college. That's fine. So just request the community college, request 0 at the parent site. And then for subsequent years, if you're requesting, let's say, 5 trainees at each site for a total of 10 trainees in your steady state, submit your budget so that it says 5 trainees at the community college site, 5 trainees at the 4-year institution site. And then in the budget justification, break that down for us. If you're on the community, especially if you're on the community college track, just say we're requesting however many trainee slots at the community college and however many trainee slots at the 4-year institution. That makes it a lot easier for us to review. And then break down the TRE costs so that if you have your PD salary, program coordinator, if you're buying supplies or anything like that for this award, you should include those costs. So just itemize them. It doesn't have to be a formal budget form, but even if you just itemize them in a simple Excel table that you copy and paste in, that's helpful for us to review so we can see where the TRE costs are going. Next slide. And now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Mohammed Ayegbo, to go over peer review.
Thank you very much, Adam. Now I will transition to the peer review portion of the webinar. The goal of this section is to help you understand how the applications are evaluated so you can write your application in a way that is very clear, that's responsive, and easy to review, easy for reviewers to assess. So let's start with the most important guiding principle, how to write to the review criteria in the NOFO. Please make sure you read the review criteria in section 5 of the NOFO while you are preparing your application. The review panel will assess your application against those criteria, and it's essential that all the required information is explicitly included in the application. A helpful mindset is that if something is important, it should be easy to find and clearly stated. Reviewers should not have to infer what you intended. Next, I'll go over a few points on how reviewers are asked to interpret context and program design. Reviewers are instructed to consider the full context of your program. They will evaluate proposed programs with the program's track in mind, whether it's a single site or college, community college partnership, along with your stated goals and objectives, your organizational context, available resources, and whether those resources are positioned to achieve the program's goals. Reviewers will assess the strength of your program to support trainees in completing their baccalaureate degrees and progressing toward the transition into research-focused higher degree programs, such as a PhD or MD-PhD, in preparation for careers in the biomedical research workforce. Lastly, the identification of current challenges or shortcomings can be viewed as a positive factor when it's paired with a sound plan describing how the award will help you remediate or overcome those issues. With that framing in mind, I will walk through the scored review criteria. I want to highlight the scored review criteria that reviewers will use as outlined in Section 5 of the NOFO. These criteria provide a practical roadmap for how your application will be evaluated. So we strongly recommend that you use them as a structured checklist during the writing and your final quality control. First, the training program and environment. Reviewers will look for a coherent training vision, an appropriate environment for undergraduate research training, and clear evidence that the program is designed to support the trainee development and success. Secondly, the training program directors or the principal investigators. The reviewers will assess whether the PDPIs have the leadership, experience, and organizational capacity to direct the program effectively and to ensure strong oversight and accountability. Third, the preceptors or the mentors. This criterion focuses on the strength and suitability of the mentoring team, including whether the mentors are well positioned to provide a rigorous research training and meaningful developmental guidance. Fourth, the trainees. Reviewers will consider the proposed trainee pool and the extent to which recruitment, support, and developmental plans are aligned with the program's training objectives. And fifth, the training record. Reviewers will examine evidence that the relevant training and research environment, along with program leadership and mentors, has a record consistent with producing strong trainee outcomes. Finally, pay close attention to the specific questions in the NOFO that map to each criterion. Addressing those questions directly and explicitly helps reviewers evaluate your application efficiently and reduce the risk that key elements are overlooked. Next are additional criteria that factor into the overall score, but don't receive individual scores. These are additional review criteria that contribute to the overall impact score, but they do not receive separate scores of their own. For this NOFO, reviewers will look for clear plans for training in methods for enhancing reproducibility and training in the responsible conduct of research. You'll also notice several criteria listed as generally not applicable. If any of those areas do apply to your proposed training activities, please follow the NOFO and the NIH application guidance. Let's now cover items that are not scored but may still need to be addressed prior to award. These items are not given individual scores and are not considered in the overall impact score, but they may require resolution prior to funding. Examples include your budget and period of support, including the number of requested slots. Select agents are generally not applicable. Next is a quick overview of the estimated timeline from submission to the award start date, as well as reminder about who to contact during and after the review process. During the review phase, if you have questions about review logistics or review process issues, please reach out to your scientific review officer or SRO, and this would be indicated in your ERA account for the application. After the review, once you have your summary statement, then questions about your next steps and programmatic issues should go to your program officer or PO. We'll close this segment with a few general tips that can help your submission. This final section highlights a few practical reminders. These are common issues that we see and how to avoid them. First, timing and submission strategy. We strongly encourage you to submit early, ideally at least 2 days before the deadline. That gives you time to review the assembled application for completeness and to correct any errors. Address all warnings as well, but keep in mind that not all compliance issues are caught automatically. NIH cannot accept missing items after the receipt deadline. Applications can be withdrawn if anything required is missing or if unallowed materials are included. So please use the NOFO and the NIH application and the NIH grants application guide as your primary references while preparing your submission. We will now move on to a few writing and preparation tips that can help reviewers evaluate your application efficiently. First, be direct. Clearly state the most important information. Reviewers should not be expected to read between the lines. Include program goals that are clear, measurable, and attainable. Make sure that the faculty biosketches are up to date and relevant to the training program, especially the personal statement, which will connect the individual's experience to the training and mentoring needs of the program. Also, ensure internal consistency within your application. The data in the tables, across the tables, and in the narrative should match. Present outcomes data straightforwardly. Please avoid exaggeration and avoid trying to hide the data because reviewers will do the math. And finally, I'm going to show a few key contacts for any follow-up questions. For scientific or research program questions related to BURT, please contact the program email with the BURT mailbox that's shown on the slide. For peer review questions, the Center for Scientific Review contact is also shown on the slide. And for financial and grants management questions, please reach out to the email shown on the slide. Thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. We hope that this was beneficial to you. Best of luck on your application, and we're happy to take questions. Thank you.
Now we will move into the question and answer portion of this webinar. I will be reading the submitted question via the question box and directing them to our presenter. And we will focus on general questions that are helpful to the broader audience. To start with some general question for Mohammed, and the first one is there a list of a specific discipline that NIGMS will consider as biomedically relevant for the purpose of this NOFO?
No. NIGMS does not provide a list of eligible undergraduate majors. Instead, the expectation is that the institution defines and applies eligibility that is consistent with the NOFO requirement that trainees be in a baccalaureate program in a biomedical field. For any majors that isn't obviously biomedical, your application should explicitly justify why it is biomedical or biomedically related in your institutional context. For example, what the curriculum content is, the required life science coursework, alignment with research training and mentoring with the NIH mission, and demonstrated outcomes of graduates entering biomedical research-focused MD or MD-PhD pathways that graduate from such majors.
Thank you. There is a second general question. Are public health fields considered biomedical for the purpose of this NOFO?
No. The goals for the BURT program are focused on biomedical research careers. Therefore, public health or allied health disciplines will not be aligned to the goals of this BURT program.
Thank you. We have received several questions that are budget related. I'm addressing to Adam, and the first one is this: can the program directors or PIs receive salary support? Is there a cap of administrative personnel payments?
Yes, PDs can receive salary support. And yes, there used to be a cap not to exceed 3 person months. However, there is no specific cap in this NOFO. Please keep in mind that your PD salary support should be one of the itemized items in the budget justification, and it should be described how those TRE funds are going to be used in support of the PD salary.
Thank you. Can we support a program manager for the program in the budget? Would this be part of the TRE?
Yes, and yes, that's a good use of TRE funds. Again, just break it out in the budget justification. Make sure that we know how much funding is being used for that.
Another budget question. Is there a formal cap on the amount of training funds that can be used for program directors or other staff salary support?
No, there's no cap. However, please keep in mind that the TRE funds are capped at 12,500 per trainee per year. And the fund should be itemized and justified in the budget justification.
Can funds be requested for mentor research expenses, for example, supplies, or does that come from TREs?
No, so generally it is expected that mentoring duties are a part of the mentor's general responsibilities, and that any costs associated with that are covered through other means, such as other grant funding or other institutional funds.
Thank you. For the budget, should we request a flat rate of 1,200 multiple number of BURT scholars for the training related expenses?
Yes, that's how it's going to be awarded. So it's easier if that's how you request it. Just multiply 12,500 by the number of BURT scholars, and that's the same whether you're at a community college or a 4-year set.
How much is allowable for program evaluation? I don't see this information in the budget section.
Yeah, so for people who are familiar with NIGMS training programs, there has long been a $3,000 limit on program evaluation. There is no specific limit in the BURT program. However, again, keep in mind that the TRE funds are a limited pool. So any funds that you use for program evaluation are going to necessarily have to come out of something else that would have been budgeted for in the TRE. The evaluation cost should be itemized and described in the budget justification as well.
Thank you. Can preceptors receive person months within the TRE budget while they mentor BURT students?
No, as described earlier, mentorship is generally considered a key duty of these professors and personnel. So those person months should not be budgeted within the TRE. Those TRE funds are meant primarily to be used for costs to support the trainees during their training program.
Is the 8% flat F&A rate provided in addition to 12,500 per student, or is it included in a student amount?
Yeah, so that's a great question for your sponsored programs office. They should always be consulted when developing budgets for these things, as they'll always know more about institutional policies when it comes to how the budgets are being drafted up than we will. However, the short answer to that question is yes. The indirect or F&A costs are always provided in addition to the direct costs. For this program, the direct costs are going to be the stipends, the total travel cost, and that includes the SRE, plus the TRE. And if you're doing the community college track, the first $50,000 of the total consortium cost can be included in the F&A cost base. Things that are excluded from the F&A or indirect cost base are all the tuition and fees and consortium costs exceeding $50,000.
What if trainees get paid through another program, for example, from NSF during summer? Is that okay?
No, that is considered stipend supplementation. Stipend supplementation is not allowable from other federal sources unless the program specifically authorizes it. This is unusual and typically limited to things like the GI Bill and other very specific programs. Public health, PHS or public health service funds are never allowed to supplement stipends. So if they're on any kind of other NIH or HHS award, they cannot be used to supplement their stipend for the BURT program. If a trainee is on like an NSF or other type of program for the summer and they wish to use that program to support their summer activities, then the grantee will have to remove the trainee from the BURT program for the time that they're in that other program. And then if they want to come back to the BURT program, they'll have to reappoint them once their training program has ended.
And the last budget question is, may mentors, preceptors from other campuses or external institutions participate as collaborators without being formal sub-awardees?
Yeah, that I would say that's more a question on an individual grant basis. I think that if that is something that your institution is considering, that you should reach out to your program officer, and your program officer would be able to better answer that question as to whether that's an appropriate use of resources and the use of funds for the program.
Thank you, Adam. I will get back to you if we receive more budget-related questions that we have not been answered. So now there are several questions about the trainees, and Lamis, please help us to answer those questions. Can we request support for 3 years for a trainee, or will NIH only cover 2 years plus 1 SRE?
So you can request up to 3 years. Typically support for trainees for the BURT program will be 2 to 3 years.
Thank you. How long can a trainee remain on the program? You answered this question. At what minimal level of classification can a trainee apply for the program?
So typically the 2 to 3 years of support for BURT trainees falls within the 2 to 3 years, the last 2 to 3 years of their, before they receive their baccalaureate degree. So typically they're appointed as sophomores or juniors, depending on the design of the program.
30 trainees total over the 5 years, or 30 a steady state for trainees?
So 30 trainees is the limit at steady state. You cannot appoint more than 30 trainees total at a time.
Can you clarify how a new cohort should be appointed each year if we are being asked to support each student for 2-3 years?
Yeah, so if you're proposing a 2-year program, that could look like recruiting 15 scholars in the first year of the BURT program, and then after that you would be at 30 scholars steady state, because you would have your, for example, your junior cohort and your senior cohort, and total that would be 30 trainees. If you did a 3-year program, you would just divide over the 3 years. So you would start recruiting at sophomore, and then work your way up to steady state within 3 years as your trainees progress through the program.
Do all proposed mentors and preceptors need to have funding for their research program? Do mentors actively seeking for funding but don't have funding is a disadvantage for the application? And we received an additional question about that. Our investigators with our 15 funding can be mentors.
So with regard to mentors and preceptors needing funding for the research, and whether that puts the application on a disadvantage, not necessarily. So we encourage programs to recruit prospective mentors from various career stages, and we understand that some of these will be early career and just getting their laboratory started. What's critical is that the mentors have the resources to provide a meaningful research experience for the trainees. And they're able to get that through their appointment in the BURT program.
Thank you. I will add to that. So here is the institutional support and institutional commitments is another important factor. So institution must provide letters of support and ensure that even if the mentors don't have funding, how the institution will continue supporting the students. Is the training mostly oriented towards wet lab type of research, or clinical research is also allowed?
So basic and clinical research is allowed for this program.
Thank you. How many PDs, PIs will be allowed? Does each of them need to have current funding?
So there's not necessarily a cap for, in terms of an MPI team, there's not necessarily a cap of how many PIs are part of the leadership team of a BURT program. NIGMS does encourage a multi-PI approach, especially when each PI brings a unique skill set and experience that will enhance the training program. Any approach to leadership design or the leadership team design should be well justified. But there's no necessary cap on the number, but the design of the leadership team should be well justified. And as I mentioned previously, there's not necessarily a requirement that they have current funding. Again, the current funding is more critical for the faculty mentors in terms of ensuring that they're able to provide a meaningful research experience to the trainees that are appointed to the program. But at least one of the training PIs of the leadership team must have a record of rigorous biomedical research in a field that's applicable to the program.
Can faculty mentors be added during the 5-year cycle, or are we 100% limited to those identified in the initial application?
Yes, that is possible. And this typically happens when you complete the annual research progress report. If you are bringing on an additional mentor or mentors, you will include that information in your progress report, as well as the biosketch and any other necessary information to acknowledge the addition of an additional faculty mentor.
Thank you. Now, some questions from Moshemi about the expectation from program. Does placement into research-oriented Master of Science program count as an advanced training outcomes under BURT expectations?
No, so students have to enter research programs after graduation, so master's programs are generally not counted.
In reporting training outcomes, are the students that went to biomedical master programs or Master of Public Health programs eligible for reporting?
Yes, yes. So when reporting for trainee outcomes, biomedical master's programs and MPH programs are reportable.
For participating mentors reporting training outcomes, should they only report on the students that sought a research career, or all mentored students?
Outcomes for all student participants should be reported, even if they don't enter research careers post-graduation.
Can we apply for more than one deadline per fiscal year? Submission in May, for example, and September?
You can't apply for another deadline until you receive the summary statement for your previous submission.
Thank you. Are there advantages to making the February 25 deadline versus the later, for example, May regular deadline?
No, there are no advantages to any of the deadlines.
For clarification, NIGMS will only support one award per applicant organization, indicates that institution can have only one active award at a time, correct?
Correct. NIGMS will only accept one application and support only one award per applicant organization. However, your organization can participate as a partner in a community college partnership track application if your partnership is strongly justified. So please keep in mind that NIGMS will consider geographic, organizational, and program track distribution when we make our funding decisions. But you cannot apply for both versions as the applicant organization. You can only be the applicant organization for one track of the program.
Can the extra letters of support go above the 10-page limit of the institutional support?
Yes.
Thank you for that. Now we're moving to some question about the tables and other programs and eligibility, and Laurie can help us to answer those questions. Can we apply if we currently hold another programs from NIGMS, for example, NIH Bridges to Baccalaureate training grants?
Yes, you're welcome to apply if you have any current NIGMS T34 training grant like Bridges or URISE or MARC. However, organizations cannot hold overlapping awards. So if your application is reviewed well and ends up being considered for funding, we'll discuss with you the best path going forward.
The next question is that we have around 20 active NIH awards, but only a few from NIGMS. How important is to have NIGMS funded researchers leading the project?
So research funding does not have to be from NIGMS. Since the program should cover the breadth of biomedical research at the institution, we would expect some of the faculty members to have funding from other sources, even including from outside NIH. The reviewers will look at the suitability of the funding to support the proposed research training activities and the breadth of biomedical research at your institution.
Confirming that institutions that receive Embry or COBRA funds are eligible to apply to the BURT program.
Yes, so NIGMS encourages applications from a wide variety of eligible organizations, including those in IDEA-eligible states, HBCUs, TCUs, and institutions that enroll significant proportions of Pell Grant-eligible students. Embry or COBRA grantees are encouraged to apply if they meet the eligibility criteria described in the NOFO. You do want to clarify that activities supported by BURT cannot be supported by Embry or other sources of federal funds at your institution.
Yeah. And what is the advisory ratio of available external collaborative institution to the trainees for SRA?
So there's no expected ratio. There's not actually a requirement to name external SRE sites in the application. So it just depends on how you have your program set up. Again, you can include letters from potential SRE sites, but there's not a specific recommendation.
And the NOFO states the SRE will be funded at 50% of the number of trainees for that year. But it also states that all trainees must do at least one SRE. What is the best approach to that?
Right. So the SRE funds provide travel costs to and from the host organization and per diem. So for the single site track, trainees are strongly encouraged when feasible to pursue at least one SRE at an organization different from the awardee. So they could receive funds from that external site. BURT trainees in community college partnership track programs are generally expected to participate in at least one SRE at the baccalaureate degree granting partner institution, but they could do a second SRE at an external site. So again, the students could receive funds from the external site for their second or even third SRE. Alternatively, if the per diem and travel costs are not that high, you could rebudget the SRE funds to provide less money per trainee, but support all SREs for all of the trainees. As a reminder, they do continue to get the stipend over the summer. So the SRE costs are travel and per diem, so they will still get the stipend.
And here are some questions about how to fill the tables. The first one is on table 5A. How can we list publication of trainees if we don't know which students will become trainees?
Right. So for undergraduate training applications on table 5D, All applications will be considered new because BURT is a new program, so you should include all students who have graduated in the last 5 years. So not the trainees you're planning to appoint, but trainees that have graduated. And those are in a program similar to the proposed program or who would have been eligible for the proposed program. So one way to think about this is all of the trainees who would have been eligible based on your proposed BURT selection criteria who worked with the faculty mentors in the application.
And what length of time can be included in Table 8D for previously funded NIH T34 programs?
So again, all applications will be considered new, so students that have graduated in the last 5 years.
Thank you. And can you explain Table 1, census of participation, departments, or interdepartment programs? Specifically, TGE undergraduates, total full-time undergraduates supported by any training award, full-time undergraduates supported by this training grant.
Yeah, so these terms are defined in the instructions for Table 1. On the BURT webpage at the very bottom, there's a link to the NIGMS training grant fact page, and then at the very bottom of that page, there's a tab for training grant data table resources. So I would recommend looking through those, and if you can't figure out, then email us and we can help you with your specific question.
Thank you. I think you answered this question, but a similar question. For Table 8D, do you need all the graduates for the last few years or only students supported by training grant?
So just as for Table 5, applications will be considered new. So you should include all students who graduated for the program in the last 5 years who would have been eligible. You can include students who were supported by previous NIGMS training grants, and there's a column in Table 8 to indicate how the student was supported. So if you had a previous grant, you can show it there.
Thank you. And here are some questions about the community college partnership, and Mohammed will answer them. If an institution is the primary on the BURT single site, can they also be the baccalaureate partner for the one or more community college partnership as well? Can they have separate partnership with 2 community college partners?
Yes, as my colleague stated earlier, NIGMS will only accept one application and support only one award per applicant organization. And your organization can also participate as a partner in a community college partnership track if the community college is the applicant organization. And yes, you can have separate partnerships with 2 or more community colleges as far as it is well justified.
Another question about the community college partnership. At the time of initial appointment, trainees must be enrolled at the associate degree granting organization. Our proposed program is an existing T54 Bridge to Baccalaureate that has students now in the 4 years of the university portion of the program. Would those existing juniors and seniors not be eligible to be trainees if awarded BURT?
At the time of appointment, those students will need to be able to complete the whole program. Therefore, if it's a 2-year program, they need to have 2 years of training left. And if it's a 3-year program, they need to have 3 years of training left. But please feel free to send us an email as this is something that will be specific to your application.
The NOFO states full-time appointment, 40 hours per week cannot be expected. Sorry, let's see if I understand the question. Full-time appointment, 40 hours per week cannot be expected to mean 40 hours research per week for undergraduates. How do you count this?
For NRSA purposes, full-time does not automatically mean 40 hours a week of like research or bench work or lab time. NRSA full-time is about the trainees' overall training commitment. That can include all the research training activities. So, for example, the mentored research, either the didactic or the program coursework, the seminars that the trainees will attend, or any career development programming that are part of your training plan. The key is whether during the appointment period, the trainee is in a full-time training status under your institution's consistently applied policies.
Thank you. And we have two questions about the biosketches. Is the mentor personal statement to be included in the biosketch, or is that a separate document?
The mentor's personal statement is part of the biosketch, and this goes into section A of the biosketch, which is the personal statement of the biosketch. It is not a separate standalone attachment.
And the last question is, NIH guidance specifically states that science CV biosketch cannot be flattened and combined. Will we receive an error if we do so?
This question is probably more appropriate for those that are rolling out this change in biosketch format. So if you have any questions regarding the enforcements of the NIH Common Fund policies and what to include on the form, please email nihosbiossketch@nih.gov, or you can reach out to the BURT mailbox and we will provide you with the appropriate contact. There's a help desk for the science CV technical questions that will be able to assist you.
Thank you so much for all of our presenters. This concludes today's webinar and question and answer session. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach us at the NIGMS BURT mailbox. We wish you the very best as you prepare a strong and competitive application. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.